Hey y'all, welcome back. In the last video, we did the takeoff with a much smaller plane. Today we're just gonna go try to join the medium leagues. It's not quite the big leagues, but that's a lot bigger. And we're gonna try to get this thing off the ground. We should be able to get through this a lot faster than we did last time, but let's see how it works out. First steps we're gonna take is just like last time. Removing the covers. You have a static port cover, a pitot cover. You have this strap that holds the propeller in place. You have an engine cover. And lastly, you have chocks. As always, make sure that your plane has its brakes on. If the parking brake is not set, it can roll. That's all we should be doing on the outside. And on the inside, the first thing we're going to do is you can start everything through this EFB, but we're going to go ahead and switch it off so we can open the window. Wonderful. Enjoy this beautiful morning in Entebbe. Now, the checklist for this one is fairly simple. We remove the chocks, we remove the covers. Great. The next step we're going to take, and we're going to move the camera around a couple times to specific panels, but to be clear, you have a console. You just have your center console and you have your top console. You can use keybinds to go to these specific spots, and it might make your life easier if you fly a specific plane a bunch of times. So before we can start the engines, we're going to need some power. So we're going to go to the top panel here, turn on battery 1, battery 2. We're going to reset our view because it immediately sets the alarm off, which is so annoying. We're going to reset the alarm before we move on. Now the next step is kind of an important one. All the fuel valves have to be open. On the left side and on the right side, you see a bunch of levers. The ones on the left hand side are APU, the internal left, tank B, tank A, and on the right hand side, tank A, tank B, internal, and the fuel dump valve. The fuel dump valve, as we remember from last time, has to be closed. But you can see based on the red label that the lever forward means that the fuel dump is closed. So all of these are in the correct position. Do make sure you check them. Now, this panel also has some of the most useful things that we need, which is here on the left is a lighting panel. We're going to turn our navigation light. We're going to turn our anti-collision lights on. Wing lights aren't necessary. It's not nighttime. We don't need them at this point. And next we're going to go reset the view so that you don't get too seasick. And we're going to go to the center console, where over here, in front of all of the control levers, you have a bunch of important stuff. In the center here are your fuel pumps and your engine starters, which we'll need in a minute. But the first thing we need to do is get the APU going. And on the co-pilot side here is the APU. So we're going to open up the air inlet, and we're going to go ahead and hit the starter. And you should be able to hear it start. I set the volume to 80%. You should be hearing it starting to whine. I'm going to let go of that. And while it's starting, we're going to go back to the top panel, where we just were, and turned on our batteries, and we're going to turn on generator 5. With generator 5 on, we should have power for everything, and we can go into the cycle of starting the engines. The next part is we're going to go back to the center console, and that's where we're going to take a bunch of next steps. So, we just turned the APU on. We're going to allow it to bleed air. The fuel pumps have to be switched on. Now again, the engine controls are in the center here of the console. The fuel pumps are under the fuel pump headers. So we're going to turn all 8 of these switches on 4 on each side, all of them on. And we're in a state now where we have to do one final step before we can come back here and get the engines going, which is the engine vibration measure. I don't think every plane has this, but this one certainly does, and this is critical. And you would think that this would be in the same area as the startup sequence. It is not. The engine vibration measure is on the top console again, and it is tucked away. I'm going to zoom in on it. We're going to look at this panel where it says turboprop 1 and 2, vibration, and right down here are the vibration measures that we're going to have to turn on. So with those on, we can head back to the console here, and we get a pretty good view here. I'm just going to turn these systems on while I'm at it. We're going to turn our left engine on first. So let me switch to our outside view so that when I hit the starter you can see what that looks like. Engines are off. The first thing we're going to do is push this condition lever for the left side from cutoff to idle, and it's going to set itself into the 0% position. Now you need these because if they stay in the cutoff position you won't be able to get everything going, right? You can push them all the way forward, all the way backwards, and cut off. There we go. So next is the idle lever. These idle levers are on the left hand side of the console. You can see forward is their normal operating position. Pull it backwards and it's in the start position. You can see the button above it's turned to start. Now we can start the engine at this point. The first thing we have to do here in the engine panel in the center is the general engine start on, and we can push the left starter and you can see the propeller go slowly and it'll out of nowhere start going fast. There it goes. Once it's done that, we can push the condition lever forward and it should be okay. The RPMs for the engine, let me reset the view so we can watch them. On the center console here, the left RPM is your left engine RPMs, right one is your right engine RPMs. They have to be above 3,500 before we can set the idle lever here on the left hand side back to normal. Now on the right hand side we're going to do the same process. We're going to set the right idle lever to the bottom here so it's in the start position. We're going to hit the starter, but this time for the right engine. And if you look outside you see now the right engine will start to twirl and it'll kick off real fast and it's going. So now that we're back in here, we're going to go ahead and set the condition to low idle, and we're going to zoom in here again and we're going to watch the RPMs on the right engine start to rise. At this point it's in a good spot and the idle lever can go back to normal all the way forward. We're completed with our engine start, which means that when we go back to this panel, the fuel pumps stay on, but the general engine start is no longer needed. The engines have started. We're going to turn this off. So engines are going, but we still need generators. So the first thing we're going to do is go up top here. We use generator 5 to get us started. Now we're going to turn on generator 1, 2, 3, 4. All generators are on at this point, which means that when we started up, we turned on generator 5 and started the APU. Now we're going to turn back to the APU and switch it off before we turn off generator 5. So basically we're doing it in reverse. The APU has a starter. It is not an on-off switch. To get the APU to stop, we're just going to close the air inlet, which will choke it out, stop it. You see the light go off, the APU is donezo. Now we can go back to the top panel and we can safely turn off generator 5. And that completes the entire startup procedure here, at least as far as the engine and systems go. Now, the next thing we're going to do, we're obviously going to have to get our permissions and everything going. Let me switch these on. There we go. But before we request permission to taxi and everything, I'm just going to go over a few small systems that you're going to want to turn on, just for your own sanity. You can use a GPS unit with this. Just again hit enter so it can start looking for satellites. Now we did just all the way up there turn on the lights. Those are the external lights. The ones we didn't turn on were the taxi light and the landing lights. Landing light buttons are left of where the GPS is. The taxi light is in its retracted position by default. Pull it down once for off, but extend it. Pull it all the way down for on. So our taxi light is on. Our next step is taking a quick look at the two consoles here. We're going to want to make sure that we have our autopilot set up in such a way that we're happy with the settings and able to use it, including what source you're using, and for example marker sensitivity. Next to it is the flare system. We're going to go ahead and turn that on because there is no crime in popping flares. That covers almost everything. The next step is lighting. It is early morning here, so it's light enough, but there are light buttons kind of strewn all over the place. The most important ones you're going to need, especially if you're going to do a night flight, is for the upper console. You're going to want to set this one and set it to give or take 10%. 10% is plenty at night. We're going to reset our view, and we're going to do the same for this massive console here. And this console has the button tucked away at the back. Let's again set it to 10%. That turns that one on. And then for the center console here, there are 3 knobs to do the same. They are tucked away under this warning panel. I'm going to go ahead and hit the alarm test. That's our warning panel. Right below it on the left here is our left side panel backlight. All the way on the right is the right side panel backlight. And dead center is for the center panel dead light. And you can see the lights turn on. It makes them more legible. One final thing we can also do just for giggles. This thing has a weather radar. You can turn it on with the bottom left knob here. I'm going to go ahead and set it on. You can see the weather radar right there on the console. I'll go ahead and reset the view here for a minute. Keep in mind that this weather radar, let me increase the visualization. It won't show anything because it's a nice bright sunny day here. But this weather radar works off of an elevation. Oop, I accidentally pulled the flaps. By default, it's at the same elevation as you. Make sure that you increase or decrease it if you're tracking weather that is not on the same level as you. Alright, so we've turned everything on that we need to turn on. Unlike last time, this place has a tower. If we go ahead and take a look, we can see that there is, in fact, an entire airport here. So in this case, we need to first get our permission by tuning to ground, and we're going to request a pushback again. Just as a reminder again, your brakes are on, so if it connects and you don't release the brakes, nothing's going to happen. And again, you go in reverse in the direction that you tell it to. Just for giggles, I'm putting us again in a very awkward position. We're gonna go ahead and stop it here before it pushes us into the grass, and apply the brakes again so that it can't push us any further. And this way you can get an idea of how sharp this thing can turn as well. It's nice with the window open. One item I did forget to do is turn on these units are running, they just don't have any luminosity, so turning these on so we can actually see what we're doing. Keep an eye on the top one where it says APL and below it is low. That's an indicator on whether or not you can turn on your autopilot. To change the display, the bottom one that you see in the top left corner here, you can use these dials at the bottom. For example, switching to wind will show you wind direction and speed. Switching to map will give you more of a map view of where you're at and where you're going. I like the map view, but this is personal preference. Do whatever you want with that. So we just got our awkward pushback. We're sitting here. We're just going to go ahead and request taxi clearance for a straight out departure.
Entebbe ground, Dips 1-1IT_N, Victor Romeo 00 Mike. Request taxi for straight out departure with Lima.
Dips 1-1IT_N, Victor Romeo 00 Mike. Taxi to and hold short of runway 17 using taxiway Charlie. Contact tower on 118.1 when ready.
Taxiing.
We're going to release the brakes, and at this point my condition levers are still set at idle, my throttle is set at 0, and you can see we are rolling perfectly fine. And I'm using my controller to steer, and you can see how easily and how short of a turn it is for us to get onto the taxiway here. Now, unlike last time, you saw that I just had to ask permission to get onto the taxiway, and the tower is telling me which taxiway to take, which direction to go, and what to do. Which means we're going to cross this runway, and we're going to stop at the hold short, at which point we will tune to the tower, which is going to be at a frequency of 118.1, and switch from ground to tower. And then we're going to request the tower's permission for us to depart straight out. So far it's only taken us 18 minutes to go from absolute 0 to already rolling onto the taxiway. So that's pretty good. And in front of us is the hold short. We're going to stop there, request our permission from the tower, and do a couple of final steps that we need to do so that we can actually take off. So we're going to pump the brakes here and put ourselves at a stop. And the first thing I'm going to do is tune to the tower and request takeoff clearance. It's a VFR flight. And get that request going. The next step is setting our flaps. On this one, it is the blue one here. We don't need to set any pitch, trim, or anything. There's no reason for us to adjust this at this time.
runway 17.
Do make sure that all of your bleed air valves, which you can see up here, remain shut. Oil temperature, you should be fine. Double check. Yep.
Dips 1-1 IT underscore and Victor Romeo 00 Mike. Did you copy?
I did copy.
Cleared for takeoff
We can
runway
turn
17.
our taxi lights off, go ahead and retract it, and turn our landing lights on. Our fuel pressure should be in the green, which you can take a look. Everything here looks good. And we can turn on our pitot heat. Pita heat. Keeps it nice and warm. You see the red lights go off. They're just there as a warning light. The reality is we're flying at such a low altitude in Central Africa where it's hot as hell. We don't necessarily need to turn all of it on, but we're going to anyways. Close our window. And that should be everything we need. All the alarms are off. Condition lever is going to go forward once we get onto the runway. Throttle wheel. Okay, that should be good. We're going to go ahead and roll ourselves onto the runway. And the next step, once we line ourselves up, is for us to set all of the throttle controls correctly, and then we can just barrel down the runway and take off. Alrighty, there we go. We are lined up. Let's put the brakes on, and we're going to set our condition levers all the way forward, which, as a reminder, are the central two. You can hear the engine start to go. I still have the brakes on because I'm not looking forward, but I'm going to push the throttle forward now, and you'll see the throttles go. I'm going to go ahead and release the brakes. And you generally get a decent feel for when an aircraft, I almost want to say wants to take off, when it's safe for you to do so. You kind of get a feel for it eventually. And as we lift off, we're going to go ahead and retract our gear, which is this blue handle. And we're just going to go ahead and gain some more altitude. We can turn off our landing lights over here. And at this point, we are at a high enough altitude that I can turn on the autopilot, so I'm going to do that so we can take the last couple of steps for us to get into flight. Our landing gear's up. This plane can use its flaps, I believe, up to about 10,000 feet safely. There's no real need. We're only going up to 10,000. So I'm just retracting them right now.
Frequency change approved.
Our taxi lights and landing lights are handled.
Tower.
As a reminder, those are up here, all off. And we can now turn on our engine bleed air valves, which are over here on the center console. We checked to make sure they're all closed. Now we're going to open the engine ones. And we can reset our view. And there we go. And let me take a look at the map real quick here. Once we get to 10,000 feet, there's just one more step we have to take. Well, technically two. One of them is adjusting the throttle. The other is turning on the propeller sync. We're almost at 10. You can see this thing just absolutely rages. It goes so fast. Just climbs like nobody's business. 10. Now, if you're wondering what your speed is, on this screen in the bottom left you see 178. That is our speed. Now that we hit 10,000, you can see that speed is rapidly climbing. If I keep the throttle in its current position, you see the airspeed on the manual, or on the analog dial next to it. Once we hit 250, we get into the yellow. Once you hit, I think that's around 320, you're basically destroying the airplane. There's no reason for us to get up that high, so we're going to pull the throttle back a little bit and stay in the green. This indicator on the digital display will tell you it goes from green to yellow to red, so it'll tell you when you're doing something wrong. So with the throttle set down a little bit, the last step we take is we go back to this main console, and under where the APU is a big cover. You can see above it says propellers. We open the cover, turn on propeller sync, we can close it. Keep in mind that as we start to descend, we also have to turn that feature back off. It's unfortunate I can't really show the weather radar at this point. It is literally the clearest of clear days, so there's nothing to see out there. Now, we're flying from Entebbe. It's one of my favorite airports. It's usually quiet. It's big enough that you can pretty much take off with anything there. And since it's in the heart of Africa, Entebbe is a city in Uganda. It's right on this massive lake that we're flying over, which is Lake Victoria, which I believe is the largest freshwater lake in the world. I can at least attest to the fact that it is indeed a massive lake. So Entebbe is a great place to take off from. It has plenty of runways. It usually doesn't have a huge amount of traffic, and there's a lot of places to go around here. Today we're going to go fly to, I think I said Kisumu? Yeah. Kisumu is in Kenya. Kenya is to the east of Uganda here. It is about 130 nautical miles to get to that airport. It is on a little lake, a smaller lake, that is directly connected to Lake Victoria. So it should be about 20 minutes to get there. So while we head that way, I'm just going to let y'all enjoy the flight. And I'll come back on when it's time to start our descent. Alrighty. Hope that wasn't a jump scare. We should be about 30 nautical miles out. We can go ahead and get started on just dropping some altitude slowly. And the first thing we're going to do is, again, we're going to remove the propeller sync that we have turned on. And we should be able to, let's go ahead and take 2,000 feet off and just start dropping a little bit of altitude. I turned the EFB on just so that you can see the map and the flight path, but we are basically approaching straight into Kisumu in Kenya. If you are ever interested in flying around Africa, Kenya and Tanzania have a lot to offer. Mount Kilimanjaro, it's right there. There's a lot to see and do. You can fly across towards Mombasa. So, if you're ever bored, go explore Africa. It's such a fun place to fly in. Now, while we're slowly losing some altitude there and descending a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and turn the EFB off. I find it to be such a blocker. There's not a lot we have to change here. There's no reason for us to put our flaps down, put our gear down, or our landing lights on. We're still far enough out that we don't have to. So we're just gonna slowly, let's see, 25. Okay. We're just gonna go ahead and keep dropping some altitude. We're basically gonna, if you need to get a visual reference, keep following the coast here at our current angle. And once we reach the end of the lake, the city of Kisumu, I don't know if it's a city or town. It is most definitely a city, isn't it? It's pretty large. Will show up on the edge of the lake. It has a single runway. Let me see if I can find out what the distance of that runway is. Maybe 1 second to open it up in the EFB and grab some more info. There we go. Runway 6 is the one that we're going to. It's at our current heading. And it has a total length of 6,357 feet and a width of 139. Its elevation is at 3,768 feet. So, relative to where we are now at 8,000 feet, we only need to drop, that's 4,250 feet in, give or take, the next 18 miles. So we're gonna go ahead and get ourselves down a little bit further and set ourselves to 5,000 feet, which should put us 1,250 feet above ground. I did tune my radio to the approach. We're close enough that we can. I'm just gonna feather it down and make sure that we have a smooth descent here. Now you do see some mountains in the distance there, but since the airport is on the edge of the... Well, you can't see my mouse, I'm hovering over it though. It's on the edge of the lake. We should be able to just drop most of our altitude without any concern of objects being in our way. Just gonna put our nose down. Get us down to, let's pick 4,200. We'll end up being about 500 feet. Since we are at 10, I'm gonna drop the landing gear. Turn on the landing lights, and we're still over speed for the flaps. And go ahead and turn that off because we're so close at this point. If you want to see how close it really is, just look at the exterior here. The nice thing about the C-160 is I switched off the autopilot entirely, so we're just flying by hand. It is one of the easiest planes to fly. It's very forgiving, despite how lumbering it can be, how heavy it is, how big it is. It is a fairly easy to manage plane. Just letting it drop some speed, gears out, and in the distance is the airport at just 4 miles. And we are in the white line. So we can lower our flaps. We are still on track from the looks of it. At this point, we're so low and at such a low speed that it's literally just dump it on the runway. I think we're losing a little bit too much. Yeah, we're losing a little bit too much speed. It is fun to fly low and to see your own shadow. The people on that boat might feel differently about that. You can see the runway in front of us. We're a little misaligned. It's not really a problem. We'll get ourselves lined up a little better. It's a long runway. This thing has a very short distance that it needs to actually do the landing. And we're literally buzzing the treetops at this point, so... there we go. Oop. That was me pulling on the stick a little too hard. Well, that was a little bit early, but I did accidentally throw it in reverse. And that's it. It's that easy. Next time I promise I won't land on top of those lights and destroy everything along the way. But yeah, hopefully that was informative. And at least if you've watched this far, you hopefully learned how to get it started from absolute dark into a functional airplane that you can take off the ground. So thanks for watching, and have a great night.